In this video we'll cover K-Cycle's 5.0 update, up to 2x performance improvement with final render settings, new features now supporting EEVEE render, new powerful Ultra Temporal Denoiser, Playback, PostFX for Compositor, Render Camera Raw, and more. For detailed information, check out the video on new features, Ultra Temporal Denoiser and Playback. Here is the latest performance chart comparing K-Cycles 5.0 to the same Cycles build of Blender 5.0. Test done with the default Cycles final render settings of noise threshold of 0.1 and sample renders of 4096 without the denoiser with an RTX 4090. Notice up to 2x faster performance in K-Cycles in a few of the demo scenes. Let's do a simple scene from the benchmarks. The demo BMW scene, output at 200% or 4K resolution. Add Cycles improved performance in this 5.0 update compared to the vanilla Blender 5.0. We select the Cycles mode to fast, to a GPU boost of max, final render settings to noise threshold 0.01 and 4096. So the render finished in 23 seconds, 0.35. To the vanilla Blender render, I've loaded already the BMW 27 GPU scene. Exactly the same thing we have in K-Cycles. My noise threshold of 0.01 and 4096. So now let's do a render. The vanilla Blender just finished with a time of 41 seconds, 0.64. Let's compare the image quality between both renders. I'll zoom out a bit. So I have now K-Cycles render showing. Take a look at vanilla Blender. 41 seconds. Look at the image. Back to K-Cycles, 23:35. The image quality is almost the same. K-Cycles 5.0 has fully updated PostFX for the Compositor working in real time in the viewport. The quality of many settings has been improved with easier to use interface. The per camera mode and presets are fully supported, and it's shown in the new Ultra Temporal Denoiser and Playback video. Or can check my previous videos on camera mode, presets, and different PostFX for detailed information. I've loaded a BMW 27 scene. Let me enable viewport rendering and PostFX. If planned to use bloom and flares, it's better to start with tone and color first because the changes in exposure will affect some flares effects. We enable tone and color, have exposure, gamma, contrast, highlights, shadows. We also have color boost, increases color in a more natural way compared to saturation that usually goes to other colors, or you can combine both to get the most color. We have detail, which can enhance nicely the detail of the image, and sharpen. Typically, detail works quite well. Mask controls where the effects is active. Select the car body and add it to a mask. Notice that the viewport is not showing the PostFX correctly due to the current Blender limitation that the passes will not work in the viewport. Need to change to the image editor to VFX. So let's switch editor to the image editor. Also, we need to add a Compositor editor for the effects to take into place, and they can be fully minimized. And now we hit render. The effects look correctly, and let's change the color tint. Notice that it's just affecting only car shell part of it and not the rest. And all the exposures and everything are only limited to the car shell. Now let's clear the mask so we can start now looking at bloom and flares. We enable and let's set the strength of the bloom. But as you can see, it blooms all up the parts of the car. Let's increase the threshold to look exactly where the bloom effect is happening. Switch blend to 1. You can see exactly how bloom is being added into the image. It allows for more accurate adjustments. Back to the default of finish. To light streaks, so we need to increase the threshold on the flares. We can adjust the raise and the length, the thickness of the flare. Anamorphic, adjust the length, adjust the angle and the thickness. So soften it. Let's add ghost. Good to add color shift for a more natural look. Final check on how the effects look by themselves. With them at 1. You can go back to the default. Go to lens. You can adjust the distortion, chromatic aberration, exochromatic aberration, small effect lateral chromatic aberration. You can do vignette, start with a strength, you can adjust the size. And finally we can add some film grain. And then you can turn it off and on to see how the whole PostFX look. Take a look. PostFX is integrated. Third-party or your own Compositor add-ons work with PostFX. Usually you add it before KC PostFX. Look at adding the sepia mode. It can work, everything works together. The new Playback feature and Ultra Temporal Denoiser are fully compatible now with EEVEE. Please check the Ultra Temporal Denoiser and Playback video for complete information. I have loaded this nice kitchen scene from iMesh ArchViz assets, which I can recommend. I have enabled Playback and turn on the viewport rendering and selected the kitchen directory. There's multiple camera subdirectories that go up here. So I'll select the camera hero. It was rendered using only 16 render samples with the Ultra Denoiser multipass on with the render camera raw option. The render times were about 5 seconds per frame. The overlay disabled everything except for the text info so I can get some frame rate information. Click spacebar to start playing the animation. Notice the huge amount of flicker filling on the glasses in this scene. Now let's enable Ultra Temporal Denoiser, and we have 3 stabilization levels, and also make sure that we have motion stabilization on. So we have standard, reduces some of the flicker, quite a bit of the flicker but not all of it. High does even a better job on the flicker removal, and Ultra does the best job for the most flicker removal, temporal artifact removal. If you look closely, still slight flicker on the glass here. If we can use the overlay motion mask, and notice that the glass has the motion vector mask right on around the edges. It would cause some flicker because wherever the black mask overlay appears, doesn't do the flicker reduction. You can increase the threshold to a higher amount, 2.5, and turn off overlay motion mask and play again. So now the glass became much more stable. So you can increase the threshold, but be careful not to go too high because it will increase the ghosting artifacts. So you have to find a balance between flicker reduction and ghosting. Here's, I think, is a pretty good compromise threshold of 2.5. Do a quick toggle to see the difference. Without Ultra Temporal, it's a huge amount of flicker. With Ultra Temporal Denoiser, it's almost completely flicker free. We can now switch also to the EEVEE render. And you can see that still the stabilization works just as well as in Cycle, since we are playing from an image sequence. Do some PostFX. We stop playing and let's go to PostFX. We enable PostFX, enable tone and color. I have already set some settings for the exposure, increase it, gamma almost the same, also increase some of the color boost and saturation, and also added some of the detail. When we turn tone and color off, you can see the difference in color and detail image. You can now render the animation and double check that the output is for video MPEG-4, so that's what I want to render to. You can use render camera and make sure that RAW is off. Select scene camera active and now click render animation. If you see how quickly it is rendering at only 1/3 of a second, that includes PostFX, Ultra Temporal Denoiser at ultra quality, and saving into an MPEG-4 file. And now let's do another render without the Ultra Temporal Denoiser on, and go back and click render animation. It is done, and now let's compare with Ultra Temporal Denoiser and without. So let's play back the animation without the Temporal Denoiser right under the camera subdirectory. And as you can see, the flicker is quite large and quite noticeable. Now let's select the Ultra Temporal animation. You see basically the flicker is almost completely gone. Very stable image. The K-Cycles 5.0 is a great update with a new maximum cycles performance and support for EEVEE, new Ultra Temporal Denoiser and Playback feature, vector blur, and a new PostFX for Compositor, render camera update with RAW mode, and more. Thanks for listening.